Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome to the Chamber offices this morning our Fire Chief Dan Fuller and some of his staff, and we have the opportunity to talk about the West Fargo Fire Department and their long-range plan. So with that, Chief Fuller, welcome.
Thank you, Commission President Dardis, members of the Commission. Today's meeting should be fairly brief, half hour, 45 minutes. We're going to talk about the long-range needs of the department, what the trends have been since COVID, probably a little bit of what it was before COVID, just so everyone understands what's going on. The bottom line up front, I always like to start with a slide like this. Call volumes are trending up. We need additional in-station staff to handle the call volume. And it's not, it's call volume, it's number of calls, it's also operational tempo and numerous calls at once. Yesterday morning, we had 5 calls between 8 and 10:30. This morning, we had 2 calls at once. Last night, we had 2 calls at once. So it is, the tempo is increasing, and we need more staff to handle that. Response times are being pushed outside of the limits that we want to see, and it has to do with trucks not being in position when a call comes in. 2 more stations needed within the next 10 years, and the budget needs, of course, to handle what we're talking about is almost a doubling of what we're looking at. So call volume history, just to show this, we have a 23.7% annual increase over 5 years, and that's for fire calls only. So if we go back to 2017, we know that we had we increased our level of training in response to emergency medical situations in town. We've had direct actionable impacts on the quality of life of our community. We've had cardiac arrest saves, we've had overdose saves, we've had our structure fires have gone down in terms of severity and total fire loss. We've had saves from structure fires. So the increase in the staffing has definitely had a measurable impact on our community, but it also has increased our call volume. So, but since EMS has only taken since 2017 to now, we only look at really what the fire calls are, the calls that we've always been going on. And that will paint the picture that we're busy. We're busier than we have been, and we know that, and we can show that definitively. We've had a 21.7% EMS call increase in 1 year. COVID affected that call volume. When I show you the graph, you'll see there's a giant dip in EMS calls during the first lockdown, and then it kind of came back up. But comparative year to year, I think 21% is high. It's actually probably a little bit lower for EMS call increase. So if you go left to right here, you've got the 2014 numbers at 298 fire calls. And you go back to all the way to 2020, now we're at 1,015 fire calls. If nothing changed, nothing changes with just a volunteer department with 40 people the way we were in 2016, we would be completely unable to handle that with the old system. With the new system, we are handling it, but we're starting to get stretched, and that's why we're having this meeting. Yes, sir?
Chief, what is the data? Is it July 1st, July 31st, year to date?
Yesterday. Yep.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. So the 2021 year-to-date call volumes, 1,390. Estimated end-of-year call volumes are going to end up about 2,400. Now, this is a grain of salt. 705% increase from total call volume 14 to what we estimate at the end of the year 2021. That's a huge number, but we increased our fire calls, we increased the type of motor vehicle accidents that we go on. So, part of that is self-inflicted, I guess you could say, but I would caveat that by saying those calls always existed. If the fire department wasn't going on them prior to 2015, it didn't matter. They were still there. So nothing here has been created artificially to show that we're busier than we have been or anything like that. The need is tremendous. So you can see that 2018 is when we started recording our EMS calls. I'd like to have 5 years of good EMS data before I make a decision on whether or not EMS calls increasing are really affecting the number that we're going on. But nationwide, it's at 80 to 90% most fire departments do 80 to 90% medical compared to 20 to 10% fire. We do 60-40, 70-30. The only thing that tells me is that we're going to meet nationwide statistics sooner or later, which means that the EMS calls are going to rise, that the fire calls aren't going to go away. We do everything we can proactively to stop them, but if you look at that mix, we're in for another increase here shortly. So this graph here shows our average total daily call volume by month from 2019 to 2021. And then the red line is fire, and the light blue line is EMS, and the green line is total calls. And you can see on the bottom half of the graph there's just numbers, there's no months. So it's month 1 is January 2019. The last month, 32 is, or 33 is July of 2021. The green trend line is showing where calls are heading. We know they're going up. The important part of pointing this out is this is daily. So you're looking at when we started somewhere in that 2.2 fire calls average daily, and 3.6 EMS calls average daily, for a total of 5.8 calls average daily, which doesn't seem like a lot when a firefighter's on for 24 hours, but when you account of all the other proactive work we're doing in our training, maintenance on apparatus, things are getting kicked down the road, because some of these calls, and everyone in the room over my right shoulder can attest that this isn't, you go on one call and the next one waits for you to be done. It's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. They're coming in clusters. I wish I could probably make $1 million as a consultant to try to figure out how come that's happening here. But I'm not gonna be able to figure it out. So the big dip there in the middle in total call volume is when we had our COVID lockdown, like you see. And you can actually see that the red line intersects the blue line. So fire calls outstripped EMS calls 3 times on this graph, or at least twice, and it met 1 month there. So, but now you're looking at last month here, we had 8.3 average per day. So the total calls are going up. When you look at fire calls, and this is average daily fire call volume by month from 15 to 21, you can see how when we were kind of morphing from a volunteer into a combination department, things were going up. And we did the research, and we found that a typical volunteer firefighter, or at least the ones that we retained for more than 5 years, there was only about a dozen of them at that point, could only do 200 calls a year. They had to balance work, life, and the fire department. And that was our major impetus, to change what we were doing and change the program, change the model, and be more flexible with our part-time staff, or what used to be volunteers, now part-time. So now going up, fire call volume, a couple months there was 3.5 a day. Every time there's a fire call, we have to do a call back, unless it's something like, I would say maybe 75% of the time we have to do a call back. The other 25% of the time, a single engine might be able to handle that call. Carbon monoxide detector, fire alarms going off and they just need a reset, things like that. But we're pulling that resource out of the station for that. And given the cluster effect that we're seeing right now, it's going to the chances of having another call are great. And then we have a call that we did really good on. And we got out the door in 60 seconds, and we got there in under 5 minutes, and we fixed their low battery. But someone had a heart attack on the other end of town, and there was no one to go, because we only have 4 people on during the day, and they're out fixing Mrs. Smith's battery. So it's a balancing act trying to figure this whole thing out. But the impact here, and you can see the trend line there, that's a tremendous trend line to show that where we're heading and what we've done here in the last 5 years. To give you a good idea of what July looked like, this is 217 calls for service. July was the 3rd month in a row we had over 200. So, 1 month of 200, we would have, so for 18, 19, 20, we had 1, maybe 2 months of 200, and it was spread out during the year, and the rest were 170, 180, 190. There might have been a 150 during the COVID lockdown. Now we're at over 200 for the last 3 months running. So to me, that's a trend, and we knew it was coming, and we knew we were starting to head up. 127 were medical calls, 90 were fire rescue hazmat. That cluster effect I talked about, we had 12 double calls, 2 at the same time. We had 2 triple calls, 3 at the same time. We had 1 quadruple call, 4 at the same time. The last structure fire we had was down in the wilds, down by Albert Drive. It wasn't on Albert Drive, it was on 2nd, I believe, 2nd Avenue. Regardless, we were down there for that fire. We had to call Fargo for a RIT team, a rapid intervention team, and a battalion chief to help us on the working fire, which is what we do in the partnership we've had with them, which is awesome to have that now. We had a second structure fire just across the street here. Every one of our resources were tied up down here at that structure fire, and we called Fargo to handle on a first alarm assignment with 3 engines, a ladder, and a battalion chief, the fire call over here. Ended up being a kitchen fire. The lady got it out before we got there, but got burned in the process. We were able to cut loose 1 engine from that fire to come speeding up here. I came up from that fire up here. Fargo's battalion chief came over, and an engine and a ladder got there. We all got there about the same time, but the response time was kind of drawn out because we were already committed. We only have so much resources, and that's probably that's a one example out of 2,400 examples I could have this year, and it's probably the worst case. So it's not anything we need to make policy by, but just anecdotal information of how busy we are. So, and then every time that we have those double, triple calls, we're calling back our on-call people. This is what our staffing looks like today. This is our organizational chart, not the full organizational chart, but just by division off to the right-hand side. Risk reduction, operations, standards, professional standards, and emergency management, and then the areas that fall underneath them. So we have a total authorized strength of 68 firefighters, 23 are full-time, 45 are part-time. Today we're only at 31 part-timers. We are down. Since we've made a plea to the public to see if you think this line of work might be something you want to do, just apply. We've had 10 applicants. So we're confident we're going to get back up, hopefully, to at least 41. Some of them are out of the area, people that might live. We have like an applicant from Battle Lake, Minnesota. We have one from down in Horace. And they're not going to make the callback times, but they can come in and do 48 hours a month part-time to help us. And that's if you get 3 of them together, they can pick up a good number of hours that might be open. So it's one of the ways we get to another slide here where we're trying to save money by the way we operate. Full-time works either a 24-48 on, or 24 on, 48 off, or 40-hour work week, depending on their position. And then the part-time firefighters work 7 days on, 7 days off, with 12 months per hour in the station. So that 12 hours per month is training hours, but they're on the truck, they're responding to calls, they're making sure, it's helping us increase if we have 3 people that happen to be doing their training hours today, that means we have 7 people in the station. We're not gonna have them for 24 hours, but at least that's helping us bridge that gap where we might be able to put 2 people on a medical and still have 4 people back for a fire, which the request for next year's budget, the 3 full-time firefighters, was to bring every day to a minimum of 5, when we know we need to be, and we'll talk about it in the next slide, somewhere in the 15 mark to make it work. So the part-time schedule also, that 7 on, 7 off, it was 7 on and 14 off. And we lost enough people that we had to condense it down. And right now we do have a survey out with our part-time people to see what type of a schedule might work for them, and we're gonna alter their schedule knowing that we're going into the headquarters building and another station being staffed. The amount of times we're gonna call them back, hopefully, will drop. So they're not so busy and they're able to manage their time. Because it only takes, even though we're paying them, they're part of the team, they're part of a great organization, and they love the work. It only takes one time for your significant other or your kids to say, well, why weren't you at my birthday party? Or why'd you get up in the middle of the night, you woke me up? Shut your phone off. It used to be shut your pager off, but now everything's on a phone. Shut your phone off, stop going. It's just taking too much time. And then they're done, and we lost them. So the flexibility and the balancing act is what we're trying to accomplish. So we'll talk a little bit here about NFPA 1710. That's the standard for professional fire departments or career fire departments to provide fire rescue special services and EMS to the public. They have requirements, and this is a consensus document, so it's not law, but it's a consensus document written by the National Fire Protection Association. There's no requirement that we meet it, and there's no stipulation in federal law that we will get in trouble if we're not meeting this. However, if something happens, a firefighter's hurt or killed, or civilians hurt or killed, legally, they'll come back to this consensus standard and say, this is what's out there, did you meet it? So we always aim to meet this standard. So it's 15 firefighters on low hazard fires, and these are the response times. So the first 4 firefighters of the first due company should be there in 5 minutes and 30 seconds. That's a 60 or a 90-second turnout time. So 90 seconds from the call comes in to you stop what you're doing, you're in your gear and you're in the truck and you're out the door, that's 90 seconds. And then the travel time within your district or within your first due area. Currently, we only have 1 truck that handles the entire city, so travel times can be anywhere from 4 minutes to 10 minutes, depending on where the fire is or where the call is. So that's one of the things we're trying to accomplish by getting the headquarters building up and running. The remainder of the firefighters have to be on scene within 9 minutes. So that's an additional 3 companies with additional 2 companies. The third company can be partly staffed, and we actually do run a rescue truck that would only have 2 people on it if it was in the station and didn't go on the first truck out, or with the first truck out, and then a incident commander, someone to be in charge. So that's for low hazards, that's house fires. You get into strip malls. We have a lot of strip malls, a lot of commercial occupancies. You're up to 28 firefighters on the first alarm, the first 4 within 5 minutes, 30 seconds, and the remaining firefighters within 9 minutes. And we can't accomplish this with our staffing. If I were to call back everyone in the fire department, I don't have enough trucks and enough seats to accomplish this. And this is how come we use mutual aid, automatic aid. So we have an alarm system that goes up to 5 alarms, and we can pull resources we start with Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo Rural is a huge partner for us. They'll send us an engine and a rescue if we need it within 5 or 6 people. And they're right in town, so that's an awesome partnership that we've been able to cultivate over the last 3 years. But you bring in Mapleton, Harwood, Horace, they'll be able to come up. Horace is turning into a partner that they're going to be a great partner with us. They're hiring another full-time firefighter. We'll have 2 people on the station during the days, so they can help us quite a bit, and we can help them. You start getting into high hazard buildings, so this is like the high-rise down here on Cheyenne Street, any of the 6-story buildings we've put up in the last 3 years, all 10 of them, or well, probably not 10 yet, but will be. The 330-plex on veterans, these are the calls where we have to have 43 firefighters on the first alarm per standard. There is not a department in North Dakota that can meet that. Fargo's manning is only 29 during the day, or any given day. So this is where some of the standards that they set kind of get out of whack of what we're talking about. But we were able to accomplish this again. We would just call in extra alarms and get more people on scene if we needed it. It just wouldn't be on the first call. But yeah, 43, and then it's a 13-minute response for calls like that. And that's because we're calling so many other departments. I think they know standard writers, the consensus board with the NFPA knows that a fire department's not going to meet this unless they call mutual aid. But we have that system up and running. So 1710 also covers response times, and they use a 90 percentile benchmark. And it's a little more accurate than using a mathematical average. When we do most of our reporting, just public reporting, we use mathematical averages just to show that. But when we do our planning documents, our strategic planning documents, we use a 90th percentile reporting time. So turnout, and that's the time from the alarm is received at the station to the firefighters on the truck, and the truck is leaving the station, is 60 seconds for medical calls and 90 seconds for fire calls. A 240-second travel time is what the recommended first due is, and that's assuming that you have a fire station in that district, a staffed fire station in that district, and we have 1. We have 6 districts, only 1 has a staffed fire truck. So the rest of them, we know that our travel times are going to get extended, and that's something that we've been trying to fix, and we know that. With the headquarters building, it'll cover most of the northern part of the city with a 4-minute travel time. First due company should be on scene 330 seconds for medicals and 300 seconds for medicals and 330 seconds for fires. And then effective response force units, 480 seconds. So on those previous slides, all those extra firefighters off to the right, that's what we call the effective response force. We have to have them respond as the ERF for major fires, working fires, to make sure that we're meeting our standards. That's to have people, you have to, if you have 2 firefighters engaged in a building by OSHA standard, actually, you have to have 2 outside to rescue them if something were to happen. We are allowed to break that in cases of rescue. So if someone is trapped in a building and we have 2 firefighters on scene, they're going to go in and they're going to make the rescue, or going to attempt to make the rescue, given that certain criteria, a 360-degree walk around of the building, safety benchmarks are made, a survivability profile, they know someone's savable in the building. They're allowed to, by policy, take that risk. But any other time, you have to have 4 people on scene. So the 480-second response force time is for the rest of those firefighters. So you're talking 28 firefighters on a strip mall. The 24 need to be there within 9 minutes. The first 4 need to be there within the 330 seconds. So here's our 90th percentile response times by planning zone for last year. You can see the turnout times for fire first due and EMS first due. We don't have good turnout times. I can tell you right now, it's because we have so much other stuff going on. We're either out on another call, we are out doing an inspection, or they're out doing training. It extends our turnout times. Sometimes, it could be middle of the night and it might be a little bit longer than the 60 or 90 seconds to get out the door. The travel times are something we can't control. Turnout times we can. So we've instituted certain things to try to get that turnout time down. I actually have an agenda item for the next commission meeting to replace garage doors at the South Fire Station, because they're in need of replacement, number 1. But number 2, the type of door we're getting is supposed to cut our response time, because it's 30 seconds to bring that 16-foot door up and to come back down. You've already wasted a minute of your turnout time waiting for that garage door. These ones will open in 14 to 15 seconds. And they open in and out, set up and down. We'll talk about it. The travel time, we can't control that. We can't make that up. You can only make up getting out the door. You can't make up time on the road without being unsafe, and that's something we don't allow our firefighters to do, is to take unnecessary risk. So the travel time is reflective of the fact that calls could be in planning zone 1, 2, 4, 5, or 6, and the truck's coming from planning zone 3. The call might be in planning zone 3, but the truck is up in planning zone 1 because it just wrapped up a call up there, because we're only using 1 truck with 4 people to cover all these calls throughout the whole geographic area. But those are our responses for last year, 90th percentile. And then we've spent 800 hours timeout on emergency calls and 175 hours timeout on non-emergent calls last year. So those are actual hours spent on emergency scenes. This is our service delivery system map, and this shows you what our planning quadrants are, our planning zones are. There's 1 through 6. Planning zone 3 has a staffed fire station. That's where the South Fire Station is. Planning zone 2 has our administration offices and an engine and a ladder company, but they're not staffed. So it's completely relied on on-call firefighters coming in to take those trucks to go to a call. If a truck from planning zone 2 has to go out on a call, we're looking at 10 minutes before it gets out the door, realistically, because the people that are taking that truck, the firefighters that are taking that truck, have to drop what they're doing at work or at home, or get out of bed, or get up from the dinner table and come to the fire station. So that's why it is what it is, right? Planning zone 1 is where we're building the new headquarters building. 5 and 6 are mainly industrial areas with very low call volumes right now. And planning zone 4 is an area with emerging call volumes because it's the wilds area down there. So we're building up that area right now We have constant construction. We're putting in, I would say, out of the 1,000, families that we're adding a year, a majority of them are going to be down in that area for the foreseeable future. So we know our call volumes are going to go up. The only thing with that planning zone, it has no commercial, or one commercial property probably, at the corner of 40th and Cheyenne. Other than that, it's the school, the high school, and then residential. So call volumes might not be what they are in the other areas, but it's going to be enough to have a fire station. So service planning, this is where we start talking about how we are going to build fire stations, and because we don't want to put them into areas, we could put a fire station in every zone in town. It's $3 million a station, and it's $1 million a year ongoing for staff. So we could spend, that money today and get it done. However, stations 5 and 6 are going to be extremely slow. They might not have a call for days. So we don't do that, right? So we look at what % of calls are being answered by an adjacent planning zone. So Station 3 in the green, they already have a station in place. That's the south station. And the rest of these percentages are what percentage of calls are being answered out of planning zone 3 or the South Fire Station's call volume. How many of them are going outside of their planning zone? So 40% of their time is spent in planning zone 1. Another 40% of their time is in planning zone 2. 8.2% is in 4, 4.7 in 5, and 6.7 in 6. So if we use, and this comes from SEPSI, or the Center for Public Safety Excellence, that would be our credentialing body, that we're hopefully going to put our, I know we are going to put our application in for professional credential department this year, as soon as we're done writing our standards of cover document. They lay out a 10, 25, and 35% formula. So at 10%, land should be found for a building. At 25%, building design and site work should be done. And then at 35%, that building should be staffed. And that helps the entire system remain in balance. So if you look to the left on the graph, planning zone 1, we are over the 35%, but we are building a fire station in planning zone 1. So we're done there. Okay, that box is checked. Planning zone 2, we're at 39.8%. What we are hoping, and what my hope is that the planning zone 1 station, the headquarters station, goes into planning zone 2 enough to delay the staffing of that station, or the building and staffing of that station, by a couple of years. Planning zone 4 is at 8.2. It was at like 5% year prior to this. We know that's going to be the next station we're looking at. Building is going to be down in the wilds. Performance data here for, and this is 90th percentile calculations using NFPA 1710. So this is the percent of time we're meeting our goals. You can see planning zone 3 is in green. Our goal is 90%, and we're meeting 81.8% on EMS calls and 67.7% on fire calls. And we didn't have any calls, major working fires in planning zone 3, so there's no ERF numbers in there. Same thing with 4. But if you take planning zone 1, where we're building a new station now, we're at 19.6 for medical and 10.2 for fire and 20% for ERF calls. So the need is there, and it's just another way for us to double check that where we're building fire stations is truly where they need to be and when they need to be built. 5 and 6, again, is my hope that the planning zone 1 station, the headquarters building, will have a positive effect on the planning zone 2, 5, and 6 numbers. But we won't have that data until we can establish a trend, probably 3 years after the station's staffed. So we'll know where we're sitting then. So, but if we do any work outside of ET area, if we do any annexing of extraterritorial areas once the diversion comes through, that planning zone 2 station will be the one that's going to take a majority or the brunt of that work, and would have to make sure that we fold that into any plans that we have in the future to go outside of city limits. Performance on call staff. This is where we make it or break it. As far as I'm concerned, the on-call people are what makes this department. When the south side station's fully committed, a callback is called. So we have 4 firefighters on duty, so that could be 2 of them are on one medical, 2 are on another medical. It could be all 4 are on a car fire, all 4 are out on a carbon monoxide alarm. But once we don't have anyone in the station to come to the next call, which is gonna happen, we call back, and we could get 2 to 3 to 5 people back to the stations, and they handle the next call that comes in. In 2020, those on-call crews were called back 144 times. We are already at 120. We already had one this morning, so we're at 126 for the year. So we're going to blow 144 out of the water in 2021. 55 times out of that 144 last year, there was a 3rd or 4th simultaneous call that those on-call crews jumped in a truck and responded to. And out of that time, they met their response time goals 34.6% of the time. So our times would be 34.6% lower if we didn't have the callback crews. So when I say that they make or break the department, they make or break the department. They're the backup for the full-time crews when those guys go on a fire call. If they're not coming, they don't get any backup. So the Balance Act is what we're talking about, and we have to make sure we maintain the Balance Act. And with the future call volume, it's going to be more difficult, and that's why we're talking about this today. So I also wanted to recap ways that we are saving money today. So number one, using on-call firefighters. The on-call firefighters get paid $10 an hour. The full-time firefighters get paid $22 an hour, $23 an hour. Next year, they're all going to be on the same pay scale. That's one of the things we're doing next year. So regardless of your status as a part-time or full-time firefighter, you're getting paid the same pay rate. We are using, and those on-call firefighters also, they don't get benefits from the city, so we're saving money on benefits for full-time people by using the part-time. We're dividing battalion chief duties between our command staff. So a great example of that is, this is my week, literally my week to be on call. So I picked that truck up last night at 4:30. By 6 o'clock, I ran 2 calls. I ran one at midnight last night. This is just my week to be tired and be up all night. But every one of our chief officers rotates that truck on a 6-week rotation. That saves us 2 full-time battalion chief jobs, and that's probably about 150 grand off the budget there. We use EMS squads for the first EMS call. So the first EMS call that comes out gets the squad to respond. That's a Suburban or an Expedition with 2 people. So it's not the big heavy truck. It's wear and tear, fuel, maintenance on the heavy trucks is reduced. And then it allows us to handle 2 medicals at once. The second group of 2 that's on staff. 2 is at one call, 2 can go to the other call. It allows us to handle more calls more efficiently. We cross-staff specialized apparatus. We have a heavy rescue truck that has all of our technical rescue equipment, our water rescue equipment that's staffed at the South Station. If that's needed, someone from that ladder truck jumps over and drives that to the scene. If we were to have a complete staff of heavy rescue is required or recommended to have between 5 and 6 people on it. That's another, for 3 groups, that's 15 people just for that truck, and we're cutting that down by just having one driver come to this, bring it to a scene. We do mandate 12 hours a month in station for all part-time firefighters. That gives me another 540 hours of coverage, station coverage a month, if we're fully staffed, and everyone does their 12 hours. So it's a kind of a win-win. Number one, it allows our part-time firefighters to go on the calls with the full-timers and get experience and actually make a difference. When we gave our awards out this year, it was about 60% full-time, 40% part-time for our life safety awards, for our meritorious service and our accommodation awards. So they're getting the exposure just as much as anyone else in the department. They're also getting their training hours completed during that 12 a month. And it's also helping us if we might have an overtime shift that's open. If one of those personnel is there, they cover that open seat. So that maintains our staffing levels. And then we also have, we're building relationships with our risk reduction staff, and we're going outside the traditional response model where we're working with Cass County Social Services and and then a bunch of nonprofit groups, in-home healthcare, services, veteran services, substance abuse services to identify super users of our system. This might sound kind of off, but so a great example here is and this is a pretty true to life scenario. We have a husband and wife that live in town. They're both in their 70s. Husband has a stroke. The wife can't, jointly they decide that the husband's going to stay at home and he's not going to go to a rehab or assisted living facility, and she's going to take care of him. Middle of the night, he gets up and he falls, and she can't get him off the floor. They call us. And most people in town, when they have a real problem, they call us and we fix it for them. So we go with 2 people and we pick the husband up, and he's not hurt. He doesn't go to the hospital. This happens 5 nights in a row. That gets the attention of our staff, our crew, and they file a report with our risk reduction division. Risk reduction goes out and does, number 1, gets their permission to come and talk to them. Some people don't want the help, and that's completely understandable. That's their prerogative. But if they want the help, our staff will go out and do an in-home life safety visit, find out if there's slip, trips, or falls, what's happening when you fall down, what made you get out of bed to fall down. Sometimes it might be as simple as recommending to, and then we work with Cass County Social Services and get a social worker involved. The social worker can then interface with the hospital system. Say he's taking Lasix or furosemide water pills at night, and it's causing him to urinate, and he has to get up out of bed, and that's what's causing it. Having that Lasix dosage move to the middle of the day so he doesn't have to have it at night and doesn't get up and fall. Maybe it is a throw rug or something that's tripping this gentleman up. We get that taken care of. Maybe it's something where the wife, she really just can't take care of him anymore, and we bring recommendations in for other services to come help them get the in-home care they need, or in the most extreme cases, we've actually been the linchpin to have someone go into an assisted living facility or a nursing home rather than being at home. It reduces the super users on our system, so it drops the call volume. We're proactively dropping our call volume, the amount of times that we're calling back part-time firefighters, but then it also increases the quality of life for that resident. And we could play the what-if game all day, but what if the next time he would have fell, he would have broke his hip and been in the hospital? The medical bill, the cost, the quality of life, those are things that we can't really put we can't it'd be like throwing a dart at a dartboard. We can't give you an exact number of money we're saving for people in our community. I would wager it's pretty high. And then the quality of life, you can't really measure that. For someone to stay in home and be taken care of and have people that actually, that do care about them, and make sure that they're safe. So, what does our future look like here? So we've been doing forecasted call volumes through 3 different methods for the last 5 years. So we look at overall year-to-year straight number increases, we look at percentage increases, and then we split the difference to what a median scenario may or may not look like. COVID threw us for a huge loop. At the beginning of the year, it looked like things were going to be really far down, and then it just took off. Right after lockdown ended, everyone hit the road, everyone was out doing stuff, and things just took off. We still only ended up with a few numbers over what our year call volume was the year prior. And now we're making what we would have had last year up this year, plus this year's increase. That's why we're going to, we're heading for 2,400, up from 21. So this is an accurate, I feel a fairly accurate model, starting at that 2,500 call volume. So by 2026, a conservative estimate would put us somewhere in that 3,200 call volume a year. So, the most aggressive one puts us somewhere at 6,200. I know that's a 3,000 call spread, but if you kind of meet it in the middle, I would wager to say we'll be over 3,000, but less than 4,200 by 2026. So the model that we're using today is not going to work with those inputs. It's just not. So we know we need to go someplace else. Funding challenges is always an issue. I would say, and this, I wasn't the chief before 2015, and Mark was on the board then, but it was a private fire company, so the rest of us weren't here. So we're not speaking, I'm not speaking poorly, I'm trying not to speak poorly of the fire board previous to this or the commission previous to this. We did what we did to make ends meet, so. But I feel we were underfunded for about 10 years. I think the things that we've done in the last 5 years, we could have done 15 years ago, and it would have made an impactful difference on the community. It would have had an impact on the budget. It would have had an impact on the bottom line of property tax, and that's a balance that we all have to make. I have to make as an operational standpoint as a fire chief, and you guys have to make as a democratic standpoint on how the city's works, because you're the elected officials. So, moving forward, all we can do is do the best we can with the information we have in front of us, and I know that, and you know that. So, there's two distinct fire and emergency services needs in our community right now. Number one is to cover what we have, and number two is to get us poised for short-term and long-term growth. If we're ignoring one, we're ignoring the other. We have to just hit this head on with both these issues. Make sure we're doing what we can today to make the system work, which is, I feel for 21, 22, probably part of 23, what we have in place today is going to be stressed, but it'll work. But I would say after the middle of 23, we're going to be heading into uncharted territory where we're going to have to change again. And if the one thing this group of people over my shoulder does is adapt to change, which is completely unheard of for most fire departments. They're very happy with what they're doing, and they don't really want to change. Two things firefighters hate the most is the way things are, and change. So it's always a yin and a yang, I guess. So, previous to 2015, I feel that from what I've observed, it was the low price of taxes, the low contract price, and keeping the volunteer model were the two main reasons why we were where we were in 2015. Today, we're looking at why our call volumes, our response times, and our fire loss and life safety. Those are things that we are really, really driving our model today. So, things have changed, and we know they're going to change again. So the future, we know we're going to need a station in Planning Zone 2 and a station in Planning Zone 4. I think the station in Planning Zone 4 is going to become a priority as that area emerges with a higher population density. Planning Zone 2, I think we can pick up the slack between the South Station and the headquarters station being staffed. But once, again, we go outside of our ET area, we're going to have to look at a station in that area, and that would cover everything west of First, so that's the Cheyenne Street corridor, all the way to the fairgrounds, south of Main Avenue. If anything happens on the other side of the interstate, say we get that overpass on 13th Avenue, we're going to have to look at where a fire station will go out there and start making the plans for it. Any 3 square mile area outside of today's footprint will be our 7th planning zone. And it will require a station once the call volume draws adjacent companies out of their district 30% of the time. Each station from now on, after this headquarters station is built, will be a single company station with 3 to 4 firefighters, preferably 4 firefighters per truck per shift. That's 12 per station. And we know that it's about $1 million cost to have one station staffed with 12 firefighters. That's a continuing appropriation out of the budget. We are actively pursuing grants to cover those costs. I'm still waiting on the grant, the SAFER grant for the 3 firefighters that are in next year's budget. I put in for a grant to cover them for 3 years. So it'd cover their cost of training, turnout gear, their salaries and benefits for 3 years. The federal government is going to release those names of who is getting awarded those grants this month. So maybe by the end of the month, we'll have some good news. If not, we'll put in for the next cycle, and we'll put in for the one after that and the one after that. And we'll keep going with federal grants to try to cover the costs. So it's very important for us. Challenges, recruitment and retention. What we see on the future here, at least, the first half of this year, we had 11 openings for part-time firefighters. We only had 7 applicants, 4 met the requirements. 3 were hired after passing entry testing. We had 7 part-time people resign after the first of the year, and it was mainly due to just not having the time commitment. It's a cyclical thing with the part-time firefighter group that as soon as the time commitment goes up, they can only, every person has to make their personal choice of how much time they can give. And I can pay them $10 an hour, I can pay them $22 an hour, I can pay them $75 an hour. It doesn't, when it comes to your family and your job, it doesn't matter. If it's too much work for them, they're gonna leave. And that's, you know, we saw, I just showed you all the call increases, that's what drove that, so. Fargo is hiring for, or they will be hiring for Station 8 in the next 3 years. So we've been working very closely, and we work closely with Fargo Fire all the time on, I would say, everything we do. So we sat down with their command staff and our command staff and looked at what their numbers are and what our numbers are. And there's a couple, like 2023, if things go right for both departments, we're gonna be trying to hire 41 people at the same time. That's unheard of. That's a whole hiring list. So we're trying to figure out ways to jointly recruit, jointly test, and jointly interview our applicants and have them as a consortium, and then have them pick what departments they want their name to be on for the list. So we'll work with them and see where we can go. Otherwise, we're just gonna be competing in between each other. It's gonna be fairly tough, so. Yeah. So here's just a map of the 2028 year about where we think we might need to be. So we would have the Wild Station opened by 2025, 2026, in that time period. Preliminarily, we'll call that Engine 77. That would have 4 full-time people. South Side would have an engine and a ladder, or an engine and a rescue truck, cross-staffed with a spare ladder company. The West Creek Station, 2027, 2028. I'm assuming by then would have plans to go out into the ET area. And this is planned, and then headquarters opened in 23 with 2 companies and a battalion. So the battalion chief would be the overall citywide fire commander on a 24-hour schedule. So by 2028, we're talking 4 stations, 6 truck staff, 20 on duty each day. 76 full-time, 20 part-time, 86 total employees. In 2028, I would estimate our total budget needs, and this is, so I sat down with Mr. Larson, and we went over this a couple of times about how many people we're gonna need and what our equipment costs are gonna be, and our best guess estimate is $6.5 million to fund the department, as it would be in 2028. So it's a number of years out. But we would, at that point, depending if we had 46 to 48,000 people in town, growth continues the way it has been, and we build out and we continue to infill, which is what is really driving our population up. We'd be looking at $126 per resident per year, or 33 cents per resident per day. And right now, and I have a slide, I didn't put it on that presentation, but I can bring it up if you'd like. I did a comparison study of 17 cities between every full-time fire department in the state of North Dakota and then a bunch in Minnesota that operate the same way we do, and compared their city budgets, their fire department budgets, their population density, their total population count, and then got some averages off that. And the average is about 121 is the regional average per year. Yes, sir?
What population are you using for 2028?
The 46,000.
46,000.
Yeah. It's, MetroCog doesn't have us that high, right, Tim? But we've been beating the MetroCog averages for the most part. Not too off, okay. Yeah, so, yep, so you're talking 5,000 by 7 years. We've been outstripping that pretty easily, so. But, the 121 is a regional average. I can tell you that Fargo and Moorhead's in that ballpark right now, 119 to 121 per resident per day. Commissioner Simmons, yes, sir?
Thank you. Real quick, we'll go back, I'm
Oh, sorry.
sorry. So I can see what I'm talking about.
Yep.
On the schedule, you have 126.96 per resident, right?
Per year, yep,
Okay, that's 2028 figures?
yes.
What about the 121? Is that today's figures? So
Those are today's figures, so those are gonna go up with inflation.
obviously a lot
Yep.
more than that by 2028, so you kind of need to adjust that figure so we kind of got an idea. Because I'm assuming by 2028, it's going to be a lot higher than 121 as a regional
Yeah, when you look at where inflation's heading, yeah, they'd probably be 130, 135.
We'll still be below
Yep.
the original application.
I would say the way that we've built out and the way that we are, you know, what the past has done to us, as much as I would have liked to see us go quicker in the past with some full-time staff and moving the way we are now, the one thing it did do that's positive, it might have withheld our growth a bit, but it caused us to be more efficient in the way we operate. And we're taking that into everything we're doing today. When we talk about that risk reduction staff going out, so we don't go 40 times to Mrs. Smith because she fell down, we only went twice, and we increased her quality of life and decreased her medical bills and possibly saved a broken hip, and we stopped the other 28 calls, whatever we would have got. You multiply that by how many people that our risk reduction sees every year, you know, I conservatively say we're saving 150 calls a year. But most departments don't have the staff to do that. But we do, and only because we weren't where the traditional response model of 15 people in the station, you know, so we've had to build off that. So it's been a benefit for us.
Thank you. As we move forward also, are your plans to continue cross-train a lot of our fire department people to do the different stuff? So that will obviously save on payroll as well, correct?
Cross-train them to do which stuff?
Different vehicles, different.
Oh, yeah.
Things
Yep.
like that, I mean, so.
Yeah, we'll always have, so we're replacing that rescue truck at the South Station, you know, so the NFPA says we should have 5 to 6 people on it. We only put seats for 2 because we know we're always going to have that cross-staffed with someone else, with another company. So if we have a technical rescue incident, that rescue and the ladder, today it's a ladder, in the future it might be an engine, those 2 trucks with the 5 people, they're the people that are handling it. We're just going to cross-staff it because that truck's not going to be busy enough to have that many people on it, so. Yep. Yeah, I can go back to any slide or answer any questions anyone has.
With the discussions that you've had with Fargo, and I know I've had some with Mayor Mahoney and Chief Dirksen also, with your direction, Chief, Fargo's looking south of 52nd, right, in the Deer Creek area? Is that
Yep.
one of them?
So they would have, Station 9 is slated for, south of 52nd, somewhere along 64th Avenue, maybe just a hair north of 64th Avenue, but in that area.
With our growth, and Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, we've been averaging in the city of West Fargo about 1,000 people a year. Is that not correct? In growth?
Mr. President, I think we're probably around 300 to 400 units per year, and you figure a family size of 2 to 3. It's pretty accurate, yeah.
All right. So, okay. Let's go back to the joint call agreement that we have with the city of Fargo. I want to commend you and Chief Dirksen for that effort and all the staff. I know that's not easy sometimes when a different colored truck rolls into your territory, but I hope that the public understands, the community of West Fargo as well as the Fargo residents, how critical that has been over the last several years. Going back when Commissioner Olson and Commissioner Jurdevig and I were elected, we had a lot of construction going on South Cheyenne, South 17 towards Horace with the roundabout. 52nd was tore up. And I hope that everybody does understand that collaboration and how important and critical it was to all of our communities. And again, I give you and Chief Dirksen great kudos on that because it kept our community safe. Because it was certainly a difficult time with regard to where you could travel, where you could go. And by having the joint call agreement, that really facilitated protecting our public. So that's great work. And I do also appreciate all the planning that you've continued to do. I hope we can keep up with you, Dan. So tell me about, I know that in the last 3 years, we've bought some equipment. how are you going to equip the new fire station? How is that in the mix here?
Yep. So the new,
I see on your charts, you know, the units that you're gonna have and the type of units and things like that. How does that figure into your budget as far as how we're, with you and Mr. Larson, our Director of Finance, as to how, and of course, Mrs. Fisk, our City Administrator. Could you just share it a little bit with that?
yep. So in the last 3 years, we've replaced an engine and added a ladder truck. So we have 2 ladders. That's critical to our ISO rating. So you have to have a ladder company within 2.5 miles of any built-up area. And they define a built-up area as 6 buildings with an eave height over 33 feet from ground to eave, or more than, I want to say more than 15,000 or 17,000 square feet. So at South area, around 32nd Avenue, Cheyenne Street over to Vets, that counts. So we had to have a ladder truck there. So we were able to get that ladder and engine for lease, and that was right when the city was transitioning into the combination department and the department falling underneath the city umbrella. We have an engine and a rescue on order right now. They should be here at the end of the year. That was a combined $1.3 million purchase out of sales tax fund. We got $850,000 of it covered through a grant through the state of North Dakota. And those trucks will replace 2 trucks that are at, one of them's at their end of life with us. The other one is, they're both gonna be scrapped because it has to do with the diesel engines and the particulate they put in. That's why we got the grant money. So with this here, we have, so say that headquarters building, Ladder 76 currently is a truck we have. It's a 2011 Stutfin platform truck. It is, it's a very long truck. And I have concerns about its maneuverability through the new Cheyenne Street project, everywhere in general. It's very long. It's the longest truck we have. It's like 52 feet. If you added 10 feet onto it, we could go get a tiller ladder and have someone in the back driving it and be very maneuverable. But so that truck it's at a 10-year point right now, and we are actually looking at specs to get that replaced, and it still has value. So the replacement cost on it is going to be halved from where it could be to where it will be. And that's something that comes later on in the year when we start talking about that, once we get a spec ironed out and how much money it's actually going to cost. The engine, we already have that purchased, and it's at that at the North Fire Station right now. So that building over on First is actually the rural station. It was given to rural during our transition, and we pay them lease money to be there every year. When the new station's built, those 2 trucks are just going to transition right over to this building, and the battalion truck is already purchased. So there won't be any additional cost in equipment outside of what our normal replacement schedule is for headquarters. But West Creek and the Wilds both would require new engines, and given the time frame before we open those stations, you're probably looking at $780 to $850 per truck, with the cost of steel and everything going up. So
I wanted you to share that with the public. I understand that. I'm sure the commissioners have been following and tracking how we're going to reassign and reallocate equipment there. One other point I would like to make is that when planning and zoning is meeting, as well as engineering, I want to commend the West Fargo Fire Department for their involvement for risk. Dell is at many of those meetings, and that's critically important. I know that when I've been in preview meetings and the like, when there's in the industrial area, particularly when they're wanting to put above ground gas tanks or fuel tanks and that type of thing, how critically important it is that we have input from the fire department of their position on that, and the spacing and how close to a property line or how close to the buildings and things like that. So, engineering, planning and zoning, and the risk management of the fire department are critical the way that they communicate together. And I think that's an exceptional effort on everybody's part to understand what's important. I also do appreciate also when when planning and zoning and engineering is looking at new developments, new residential developments, of how critical it is and important on the streets and how cul-de-sacs and all of those types of things. Prior to me becoming a city commissioner, I had no idea how important that was, that a truck can turn around and, whether it's a garbage truck or a fire truck, and important how it is to the public safety. So I want to commend you for your leadership on making sure that those small items, which could become very big items very quickly, are attended to. And to all the staff, I thank you for that.
Thank you. We do appreciate the words. We do a lot of work that is way outside of just the traditional lights and sirens that the public sees. A lot of work. And they make it happen.
Commissioners, any additional comments or questions for Park? Thank you, Chief.
Okay, thank you.
Nice
I
job.
appreciate your time.
Nice job.
Thank you.
One last thing. On behalf of a grateful community, to all the men and women that serve our community as firefighters and EMS people and all that type of thing, we're very grateful for your service. Thank you very much.
Thank you.